Dive into the world of twisted love stories where partners help each other commit terrible crimes.
And I said, what on earth did you cut her up for? She said she wouldn't fit in a dustbin.
From full-blown psychopathy to serious personality disorders.
And so for the first time, you actually saw and heard her in that voice that talking about what happened here and here and here, and she's dressed as a little schoolgirl.
Today's video takes a closer look at some of the most dangerous female killers ever caught on camera. Aileen Wuornos. Born on February 29, 1956, with the last name Pittman. Her parents tied the knot when her mom was just 14, but they split up when Aileen was only 2 months old. Tragically, she never got to know her dad, who was in prison for raping a young girl and ended up taking his own life behind bars. Aileen's mom wasn't exactly a role model either. She left her kids with their grandparents when Aileen was just 4 years old. By the time she hit 11, Aileen was already trading sexual favors at school for cigarettes, drugs, and food. At 14, she got pregnant after being raped by a family friend and gave her baby up for adoption. A few months later, she dropped out of school, and at 15, her grandfather, who had abused her as a child, kicked her out of the house. To make ends meet, Aileen turned to prostitution. By the age of 30, she had a long list of arrests and a couple of stints in jail, a brief marriage that lasted only 9 weeks, and she received $10,000 in life insurance after her brother passed away, which she blew through in just 2 months. She also attempted suicide 6 times. On November 30, 1989, Aileen was contacted by 51-year-old Richard Charles Mallory for sex. However, after taking her to a spot, he proceeded to beat, and sodomize her. This was the breaking point for Aileen, who had faced abuse her whole life. Just 2 days later, Mallory's abandoned car was found, and by December 13, his body was discovered with multiple gunshot wounds. Aileen's killing spree continued with 6 murders, culminating in the death of a 62-year-old security guard named Walter Antonio. The police started looking for Aileen after she and her girlfriend, Tyria Moore, were involved in a car accident with one of Aileen's victims. An eyewitness description of the pair sparked a media campaign to track them down. Aileen Wuornos got arrested in Volusia County on January 9, 1991. The day after, her partner was taken into custody in Pennsylvania. To avoid prosecution, he managed to get Wuornos to confess during a phone call. In 1992, Wuornos faced trial and was found guilty of murdering Richard Mallory, her first victim. Even though it came to light that Mallory had a history as a offender, and Wuornos claimed she killed her victims in self-defense against attempted rape, it didn't stop her from receiving the death penalty. On October 9, 2002, Wuornos was executed by lethal injection after spending a decade on death row. Her final words were noted as some of the eeriest ever spoken. It goes, "Yes, I would just like to say I'm sailing with the Rock, and I'll be back, like Independence Day, with Jesus. June 6th, like the movie, Big Mothership and all. I'll be back, I'll be back." The next is really shocking. She was sold by her own mother for just 3 bottles of beer, and this will lead to the deaths of many innocent people. Juana Barraza. Juana Barraza Samperio had a tough start in life, as her alcoholic mother traded her for beer when she was just a kid. The man who took her and abused her, and she ended up having a son. After her mother passed away, she left her hometown in Hidalgo and moved to Mexico City, where she got married multiple times and developed a passion for lucha libre, the famous Mexican masked wrestling. There are mixed stories about Juana's wrestling career. Some people believe her claim that she was a professional wrestler in central Mexico during the 80s and 90s, going by the name La Dama del Silencio, or the Lady of Silence, before retiring in 2000. On the flip side, others argue that she was just a huge fan of lucha libre and never actually stepped into the ring for a real match. In 1995, after having her 4th child, she found herself in desperate need of cash, which led her to start stealing and breaking into homes. The following year, she escalated to robbery. Along with her friend Araceli Tapia Martinez, they dressed as nurses to gain entry into their victims' homes and steal from them. In Mexico, there's a deep love for grandmothers, so when it was revealed that a serial killer was targeting them, the Mataviejitas murders sparked more outrage than the over 14,000 homicides that occurred in 1998. This was the first confirmed case of a serial killer in the country, and it put a lot of pressure on the police to catch the culprit. At first, people thought the killer was a guy dressed in women's clothes, and there were quite a few mistakes made during the investigation. They ended up bothering cross-dressing workers and arresting innocent folks. All the victims in the Majavida case were older women who had been strangled, and the police figured a woman with small hands couldn't have done it. Then, in January 2006, the police finally caught a break. An eyewitness spotted a woman in a red coat running away from the home of 82-year-old Ana Maria de los Reyes Alfaro, which led to Barraza being arrested. Barraza went on trial in the spring of 2008, with the prosecution claiming she was behind as many as 40 murders, but she was only convicted for 16. She maintained that she had only killed Alfaro and pointed to her mother's treatment of her as the reason for her actions. On March 31st, she got hit with a whopping 759-year prison sentence. Since the max penalty in Mexico is 60 years, it's pretty much guaranteed she'll be behind bars for the long haul. If you think that's harsh, just wait. What's coming up next is even worse. Rosemary West. Rosemary West was born in Northam, Devon, to a schizophrenic father and a depressed mother. After her parents split, her father became violent and abused his daughters, Rose and Patricia. As a teenager, Rose developed a troubling obsession with her body and molested her younger brothers. At 15, she met Fred West, a divorced man with 2 children. Despite initial hesitation, she began dating him, and after becoming pregnant, moved in with Fred against her father's wishes. Together, they formed a dysfunctional family marked by their crimes. While Fred was imprisoned for theft, Rose killed his daughter Charmaine, and after his release, he buried her body in their backyard.
I remember Charmaine used to always say to Rosemary, "My mum's coming back for me. You know, I don't like you, I don't love you." And the one day I went to school and Charmaine didn't.
And Marie suffered repeated sexual assaults from her father and stepmother, eventually being forced into prostitution. In October 1972, the West family hired 17-year-old Caroline Owens as a nanny. Soon after, they made unwanted sexual advances, which she rejected. They offered her a ride home but assaulted her during the trip, then confined and raped her at their home on Cromwell Street. Owens managed to escape and reported the incident to her mother, leading to the West's arrest. However, they successfully claimed the encounter was consensual, and Owens was too traumatized to testify. The couple was fined £100 and released, prompting Owens to attempt suicide. In the following years, several young women, including Linda Goff and 15-year-old schoolgirls Carol Ann Cooper and Shirley Hubbard, were murdered by the Wests after enduring horrific assaults. After Anne-Marie left to live with her boyfriend, Fred West turned his attention to his younger daughters, Heather and May. In 1989, Heather confided in a friend about the abuse at home, leading to her tragic murder by her parents, who dismembered her and buried her in their backyard. In 1992, Fred and Rose West were arrested after Fred was convicted of sexually assaulting his 13-year-old daughter. Their children were placed in foster care, prompting an investigation that uncovered human remains and a torture chamber at their home. On August 6, 1992, they were charged with multiple offenses, including murder and rape. Fred later died by suicide in custody, while Rose was sentenced to life in prison for 10 counts of murder in November 1995. Next on the list is what I call a killer couple made in heaven. Carla Homolka.
Wait, what are you drinking there?
Ice.
Ice? Ice baby to go?
No.
Okay, let's see what's up. We have the television and we have...
Carla Homolka and her spouse, Paul Bernardo, are infamously known as the Ken and Barbie Killers, a name that downplays their horrific crimes. Bernardo, a serial began his attacks in 1987 in Scarborough, Canada, targeting minors and concealing his identity. After meeting Carla, she discovered his darker side but chose to stay with him and became complicit in his crimes. In December 1990, Carla drugged her sister, Tammy, allowing Bernardo to assault her. Tammy tragically died from asphyxiation, and the couple staged it as an accident. From 1991 to 1992, they abducted, raped, and tortured 2 teenagers, Leslie Mahaffey and Kristen French.
He used to make me kneel on the floor in the middle of the bedroom, and then he'd stare straight ahead, and he would walk around me in circles and kick me.
Recording their horrific acts on video. Following their arrest, Homolka negotiated a plea agreement that required her to testify against Bernardo and to plead guilty to 2 counts of manslaughter, resulting in a 12-year prison sentence. Her testimony played a crucial role in securing a life sentence for Bernardo, who was denied the possibility of parole. The couple subsequently divorced in 1994. The bargain was heavily criticized by the public and dubbed "deal with the devil" after it came to light that Homolka had willingly participated in the murders rather than being Bernardo's victim herself. Homolka was released from prison in 2005 and now lives in Montreal with her second husband and children. If you think betrayal is the worst consequence in romantic relationships, the following case will surprise you with its violent love-hate dynamic. Judy Benoano. In 1983, Judy's Benoano's boyfriend, John Gentry, was severely injured when his car exploded. Investigations into the explosion began to uncover discrepancies in Benoano's background, including the absence of information regarding her name change from Judias Welty to Judias Benoano. As the inquiry progressed, law enforcement discovered that Benoano had been informing acquaintances that Gentry was suffering from a terminal illness. This raised the question of why she would propagate such rumors about her partner. Subsequent findings revealed that the vitamin pills Benoano had been administering to her boyfriend contained arsenic and paraformaldehyde. Additionally, her concealed previous marriages came to light. The remains of her first husband, James Goodyear, and her boyfriend, Bobby Morris, were exhumed, revealing that both had succumbed to arsenic poisoning. Benoano had married James Goodyear, a sergeant in the United States Air Force, who passed away in 1971, with his death initially attributed to natural causes. In 1973, she entered into a relationship with Bobby Morris, who died from poisoning in 1978. The following year, her son Michael became ill. During a boating excursion, the canoe capsized, resulting in Michael's drowning. After losing both her husband and boyfriend, Benoano cashed in on some big life insurance payouts and decided to start a beauty salon after Michael passed away. In 1985, she was sentenced to 12 years for trying to kill Gentry, got a life sentence for the Michael Benoano case, and received the death penalty for murdering James Goodyear. After spending 3 years in Broward Correctional Institution in Florida, she was executed in the electric chair. Sometimes, the sweetest smiles hide the most troubled souls, and we're about to dive into that. Nanny Doss. Nanny Doss initially seemed like a sweet grandmother, but she had a dark history of murders dating back to the 1920s. Born in 1905, Doss had a difficult childhood marked by an abusive father and a lack of education. A serious head injury at age 7 led to years of health issues and depression. Seeking escape, she married Charlie Braggs at 16, but their unhappy marriage resulted in 4 children and heavy smoking. Tragedy struck in 1927 when 2 of her daughters died from food poisoning, leading to her divorce. Doss later killed her daughter Melvina's newborn with a hairpin and her 2-year-old grandson, Robert, under mysterious circumstances, collecting a $500 insurance payout after his death. Robert Harrelson, the second husband of Doss, passed away shortly after their marriage of 16 years, during which he committed an act of against her and died the following day. Nanny Doss's second husband, Arlie Lanning, was unfaithful and died 3 years after they met through a Lonely Hearts ad. Soon after, his mother passed away in her sleep. The pattern continued with the deaths of Doss's bedridden sister Dovey, her mother Louisa, and her 4th husband Richard Morton, all within a short time. In June 1953, Doss married Samuel Doss, who disapproved of her romance novels. He was diagnosed with a serious digestive infection and died shortly after treatment. His unexpected death raised suspicions, leading to an autopsy that revealed arsenic in his body. Doss was arrested and confessed to murdering 4 husbands, her mother, sister, grandson, and mother-in-law. She was convicted only for Samuel's murder and received a life sentence, dying of leukemia in 1965. Individuals who commit violent crimes is due to their disturbed mental status, often rooted in childhood trauma or abuse. Serial killers may exhibit traits like lack of empathy, narcissism, or psychopathy. Their motivations can include a desire for control, power, or thrill. Understanding these psychological profiles aids in criminal profiling and prevention, highlighting the complex link between mental health, environment, and violent behavior.